The rest of the NFC West is now making Russell Wilson's argument for him, isn't it? Because right now, you have two teams that are being extremely aggressive, even though they're probably not Super Bowl contenders, in saying this is how we take that next step towards being a Super Bowl contender. The Cardinals add pass rushing help in a division where the Seahawks are already not in the best of shape when it comes to protecting Russ from those awesome pass rushes. Arizona's going to have Chandler Jones back this year. He who had, 5 sacks against the Seahawks towards the end of the 2019 season in that awful game that Brett Hundley beat them. Now they add J.J. Watt into the mix. We know that the Los Angeles Rams always do a very good job against Russell Wilson. And even if Leonard Floyd isn't there this coming season, you know Aaron Donald up the middle is going to be a pain. And then in San Francisco, you've got Nick Bosa. You've also got DeForest Buckner. Off the edge, Eric Armstead and Dee Ford. Those pass rushes, they're all really good. Russell Wilson, he wants help on the offensive line, and basically all of these teams have just made his argument for him. The Seahawks need to do something aggressive on the offensive line if this is what all the other teams in the division are doing. And they also just need to be aggressive this offseason if everyone else is. I don't know if you can really afford to stand pat, to sit back, if you see teams like the Cardinals making aggressive moves like this. And look, I think long-term and short-term for the Cardinals, it remains to be seen if they are actually a true contender. But at the very least, they're a pain. They beat you in overtime in that game where Russell Wilson just all of a sudden had a bunch of brain farts and threw some awful interceptions, specifically that one that he threw in overtime. And, they were marching down the field before your defense made a big stand in that game that took place on Thursday night. They are better, incrementally, at the very least. The Rams, better, incrementally, at the very least, with Matt Stafford over Jared Goff. I suppose that the Rams perhaps rose up the ladder just a little bit more than the Cardinals with the move that they made. But this is one of those moves that I feel like Russell Wilson is going to point at and say, hey, look at what these teams are doing. And he should. If he wants to get what he wants, this is what you point at. This is the evidence that you need to show the Seahawks that if they're not aggressive this offseason, that they could find themselves behind the rest of the division. I don't know what J.J. Watt still has left in the tank, and I texted a couple of my Houston buddies who I worked at my old radio station with to give me an honest, objective report on him. I know some people are going to say he's washed. He had only 5 sacks this past season. He is definitely not the best defensive player in the NFL anymore, and at the beginning of the 2010s he was. He isn't that. That belongs to Aaron Donald now. But he still has some semblance of that, I think, ability left in him. And I don't think that he is completely washed as some are making him out to be. I'd also say that just having a guy like J.J. Watt aboard your team adds a little bit more seriousness to a defense that I feel like has some good pieces, but at this point in time is young and on the rise. You got Budda Baker at safety. You got Isaiah Simmons, your first-round draft pick, who I like. I like how physical he plays at linebacker. And now in the front, you have 2 guys that are equally respectable. We'll see what the Cardinals do at cornerback since Patrick Peterson's a free agent this offseason, but the Cardinals are better. The Rams are better. The Seahawks have done nothing yet to improve themselves this offseason. I think that they do deserve a little bit of time. I know that Russell Wilson thinks that the idea of perhaps having faith in Pete Carroll, something that in that athletic piece he asked for from Russ, is maybe a difficult thing to actually have the patience for, given the way that things have gone the last couple of years. But I would like to see him at the very least wait until free agency begins and the trade market kicks off. I suppose it already has. But then on top of that, we'll see what they do in the draft too. But, what are they going to do in the draft that realistically makes them better for 2021, at least at first glance? That was back at the second-round pick. That's essentially a third-round pick. Whatever the case, the Cardinals are now better.